Hey guys, welcome to DJ Tutorials. This is a new tutorial series on kind of like jewelry design. We're going to be doing some hard surface modeling and we're going to be creating the something similar to the diamond ring that you see here. If you haven't yet, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out. And we also have a Discord. So the link is going to be down in the video description below. And if you have questions or if you just want to collaborate with other artists, feel free to join the Discord. I do have a Patreon, so the link is also provided in the video description below. You'll be eligible to get some project downloads and some other perks and stuff like that. So you can check out the Patreon page. So before we start with this tutorial, I just want to give a disclaimer. We always need to, and this is my suggestion, we always need to know what we're doing before we actually start working on something. And what we're going to be doing here is what's called a channel set diamond band. So this comes in a variety of different forms, but what we're really going to be focusing on is doing something kind of like this one here. So I will provide a link to something similar in the description below so you can take a look at what this looks like in person. But you can see here that we have this diamond band with these that go across, and then underneath here there are some inset holes and things like that. And the thing with this tutorial that I really want you to know about and to think about is this is going to be kind of like a process where we're going to be working through hard surface modeling with something like this, and we're going to run into some issues probably and find ways to resolve those. So this isn't going to be a very simple plug and play, do this in 5 seconds sort of thing. It's going to kind of depend on what your particular project is going to be, and also will sort of depend on how you want certain things to look. So it's more of an overview on how you can actually create something like this. And let's go ahead and get started. So by the end, we should end up with something similar to this right here. And we're going to just open up a new file. So we're going to new. We're going to go to File, New, General. So we're going to start with nothing here, and we're going to grab everything here with A, and we're going to delete that. Now what I'm going to do here is I have the screencast keys or the key presses down here below. I'm also going to be using the screencast keys, but there is an issue with it. When I use a particular tool, this will cause Blender to crash. So you'll see me turn this off and on sometimes, and I might have to jump a little bit in the time code so that you don't see the crashes and all that. But let's go ahead and get started with this project. So what we know is that we want to have a band with these diamonds that go across. It looks like there are roughly, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So maybe like 12, roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe like 14. There's like 14 that go across here, and it looks like it goes from one side to the other. So we're going to try to make something that looks similar to that. Now you will see these little holes right here, and I'm not exactly sure what those are for because I know that a lot of these designs you don't necessarily need posts to keep these in place as far as I know, because there is supposed to be a channel in here that holds the diamonds in place. So we're probably not going to need those. But we do need these larger holes right here. So we are going to be creating those, but these smaller ones, we're not really going to worry about those in this one. So we're going to hit 1 here to go to the front view, and I'm going to split the panels here just so that you guys can see what this looks like in different orientations. I'm going to hit N and T just to make sure that all of my other tools are sort of off to the side there. And we actually, you know what, let's go to the modeling tab, and we're going to do that again here. So split this. Bring this down like this, hit T to hide those. And this one here, we're going to go to a side view. And this one down here, we're going to go to a front view. So you can kind of see how this is being built out as we continue here. And we're going to be modeling, or at least I'm going to be modeling, particularly in this one. And you can kind of follow along, or you can build it at the same time, rewind the video, all that kind of stuff. So let's save this before we get started. And I'm going to call this ring tutorial version 3. Let's actually call this channel set. And save that out. So when we start here, what we'll want to do is first make sure that you go up to Edit Preferences, and we're going to enable a add-on, and it's called Add Mesh Extra Objects right here. So turn that on, and that's going to have our diamond shapes in there. Once you're done with that, you can make sure autosave is here, or you can save preferences. And we're going to start by just creating a circle. So hit Shift A to add mesh. And for me, it's up here. So there's a circle right there. And it's going to lay flat because right now it's just, laying flat like that. But we want it to actually rotate. We want to rotate this on X. But before we really do any of that, you need to pay attention to the amount of vertices or the amount of splits that are actually in this circle. So we know that we want to do 7 on each side, or 14 in total. And you can see here that it's split right down the middle, which is really nice because we want there to be diamonds on either side, not one right in the center, at least for the design that I'm going for. And we want there to be at least 7 of these sort of like faces here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we are not exactly starting it right here. It looks like we'll be starting it right here. Now, if you wanted to start it right in the middle of our circle, that's very easy. You can just delete this, add a new mesh here, circle, and then you can increase this or decrease this by 2, I believe. Will give us what we need. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So not quite. Let's try that again. So we just add a circle, and let's see if this will do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there we go. So basically, if you do 28 splits or 28 segments here, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 right there. And the diamonds are going to kind of poke out from those. Okay, so we'll just split this right in half here. That's going to basically have diamonds. And then the bottom half is going to be more of the band that doesn't have any diamonds on it. And this all depends on what kind of design you're going for. Okay, so it's very important that you understand that. Now, when we design this, we don't want to be looking at it from the top. We actually, to make this a little bit easier, at least for me, I'm going to rotate this on the X axis, so RX 90, and let me turn back on the screencast keys right there, and you should see them down the bottom. And I apologize for the thing down here, the keyboard. You should be able to see some of these pop-ups here when they show up. I'll try and turn off the keyboard and stuff when we start actually messing with some of those settings in detail. Okay, great. So now before we start to do anything else here with modeling, we want to actually set a diamond in a place where we can actually start to build this out with this channel design. So we're going to hit Shift A here, go to Mesh, and we're going to go to Diamonds, which should be there when you enabled that extra mesh add-on. And we'll click Brilliant Diamond, and I'm going to turn off the keys over there. And you can see that a little pop-up comes up here with all these other things. You can change a lot of this stuff if you want. I would recommend that you just leave it at the default because that's what I'm going to do, but it's up to you if you want to kind of play around with some of these to get some different designs. It's really up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down, turn this back on. So here's our diamond, and we're going to go into edit mode, go to vertex select up here by hitting 1, or you can click it up there. Select this bottom vertex, and we're going to just snap our cursor to the selected. And what that's going to do is that after we go out of edit mode into object mode, if we right click here, we can go to set origin to the 3D cursor right here. So the reason why I'm doing this is because that's going to make it to where when we scale it, see it goes right there, so it's a lot easier to control. And we're actually going to sort of pivot it onto our circle here and put it in a position for the channel so that when we start to make edits to this mesh of the circle here that's going to be our band, it's a lot easier for us to deal with that. So I'm going to hit Control Save here, and then I'm going to snap the cursor back to the world origin. And the reason for that, you'll see in a moment why we're doing that, but for right now, just do that because I said so. So grab with G, lock it to the Z, hold Control to snap it to the grid in the back if you'd like to. And let's just zoom in here a little bit and go towards the top. G, Z again. I'm just going to try and place it right there, okay? That's a gigantic ring or a gigantic diamond on there. It probably never would really happen, but let's just put it there, hit S to scale, pull that down, and let's just have it be roughly this large, okay? You'll see me saving a lot, and I would recommend you do that too. So the next thing that we want to do here is we want to actually take this diamond and we're going to put it in where the start of the channel is actually going to happen. And I've done this quite a few times of trying to recreate this in the more simple way for newbies and intermediates at hard surface modeling to make this a little bit easier for everybody. And I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do here to make this might not be, quote, the best way, and it might not even be the easiest way, but it's the easiest way that I can show you how to make this and have it make sense and you can get something decent pretty quickly. Okay. So if you have other methods, great. You can put that in the comment section, but just know that I'm aware that there are many different ways to do this. And this is just the way that I found is relatively the easiest to show everyone. So next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to change the transform pivot point here to the 3D cursor. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us very easily to move our ring around this circle here. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit R to rotate it and we're going to move it, and you can hold control if you'd like to snap it to the grid. It's really not going to help us out too much here, but we're going to try and get it as close to as possible in the middle of this face or this plane, that this part of the circle right here, this flat part, okay? And we will kind of put it roughly here. Maybe like that. And the reason why we're doing that is when we start to create the channel, we really need to know how big this thing is going to be and if it's going to fit within the confines of the band that we're creating. So we do have the options here to change this to, instead of the pivot point to from the 3D cursor, change it to individual origins again. And you can take this and change the size of it to get a little bit more accurate to what it might end up being. I'm going to hit Control A to apply the scale from this point. And there we have sort of a rough idea about where that first diamond in the channel is going to start. So you have to kind of imagine that when we look at our reference here, see this right here? That's going to be the starting point of our diamond there, or the channel. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to make some adjustments to this overall circle here. And we're basically going to start creating the band and the channel at the same time. And there's going to be a couple things that we do here. We might run into some issues, like I said earlier in the tutorial, but we'll address those as they come. So let's scale this up, and we're going to put this right at the base of the diamond right here. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on these two here so that it's a little bit easier to see how the modeling is going on the sides. So the band itself has to go from the very bottom of this diamond to just about above this top. And if we look at the reference material, you could see that it's above the diamonds in there. So if we go back here, hit E to extrude, and then if we change this, our pivot point to the 3D cursor, will make sure that we're scaling right around this right here. Scale this up, and we can zoom in on some of these other views here and put it above the diamond, just like that. Now, obviously, this is bisecting the diamond right now, but that's okay because we're going to make some adjustments anyway. And we're basically just building out the overall concept and idea in broad strokes, okay? So next thing that we're going to do here, I'm going to go to the side view here by hitting 3, and we're just going to grab everything. And I'm going to E for extrude, lock it on the Y, and pull it out so that it goes beyond the ring. And we can make adjustments to the thickness and all that as we go, but we're going to bring it to just about there, just like that. And we're going to go ahead now, and you probably have been wondering why I haven't done this yet, and there are reasons. We're going to go ahead and turn on the mirror modifier. And make sure that you choose the right axes, so you should be able to see it doubled on the other side of the Y here. And remember, when I rotated my ring, the circle in the beginning, I did it in edit mode. If you did it in object mode, you might have a different axes that the mirror modifier is going on. That's just fine. If you go back to the object mode, hit Control A and apply the rotation, then you should see the exact same thing that I am here. Okay, so if you have to do that, go ahead and do that. So the clipping here, we're going to turn that on. We're going to hold Alt and Control Shift Alt to grab both of these sides here, and we're just going to move that, grab it on the Y axis, and just kind of move it around a bit to make sure that it's nice and locked along the Y axis. Now, one thing that we need to do before we actually set this mirror modifier, let's turn this off, and you can see that I actually have a set of faces here. So let's grab all those faces, Alt left click that loop of faces there, and we're going to hit X, delete faces, and that's going to leave us with this right here. If we turn back on the mirror modifier, you can see that now everything is fine. It's nice and connected. And then now we're going to actually apply the mirror modifier. So make sure you're in object mode, go over here to the drop down, click apply, and then we're going to hit 2 to select our edges, Alt left click both of these, holding Shift and Alt and left clicking those, and hit Control X. And that is going to, I'm going to undo that really quick. If you just hit X, you can click on Dissolve Edges right here. But if you hit Control X, it is a hotkey to dissolve those edges. And now we have just a circle as we had before. There is a method to my madness, you'll see. Let's go into wireframe here. And what we want to do now is we want to start to create our channel. So we know that this face right here, and it's going to go all the way along to the other side of our object here. So if you go back to solid mode and you hold control, you can actually select all the faces that are in that row. Then if we hit shift and select this one here and hold control shift, we can actually select all of that line as well. Like I said, there is a method to this. I've done this many, many times. And again, I think that this is one of the best ways to show you guys how you can actually make this happen. So if we go to wireframe here, and we just kind of take a look here, what we want to do is we have to inset this section here, and then we're going to have to pull all of this area down a bit while the inside here stays the same. So what we want to do is hit I to inset, and let's actually right click and go to solid mode to see this. So we want to hit I to inset, and you can see here that I'm getting this effect just like this, which is pretty much what we want. Now, what I can do is hit I again, and it will make individual insets like this. But we actually want them all to be the same. So I'm going to hit I again, and we want to create it kind of like this here. Now, we will be able to adjust this. So, keep that in mind as we do this. So let's do something like that. And I think that's going to be okay. And the idea here is that the channel, because we're creating a channel in the sides, so let's hit 3 here. The channel on the side should actually grab the diamond a bit, okay? So what we actually want to do, if I go back to 3, the side view here, let's actually scale this S, and then on the Y, let's pull this in a little bit more so that when we create the channel on the sides, it actually grabs the diamond shape a little bit more, okay? Now from this point, what we're going to do is we're actually going to inset the individual squares, and that's going to help us create these circles right in here, but also the socket that these kind of fit into that you can't see inside the band here. So let's go back to here. We're going to hit I and then I one more time, which is going to create individual. Let's actually look at this from a solid view so it's a little bit easier. So we're going to hit I to inset, and you can see that I'm insetting it here, and then I one more time, which makes individual insets. Now there's one issue that you can kind of see here, and that issue is that these are all of a rectangular shape. You see that? And if I'm just going to set that by hitting left click. If I go to wireframe, you can see that it is both rectangular and they're kind of changing in size, which this is okay. This is not a really big deal. What we can do here is we can actually go up here and change this, the transform orientations from global, change it to normal. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to use the information of the normals, and you don't have to do what I'm doing here. I'm just going to show you what I mean. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to turn on normals, and you can see that there are normals here, or these lines are showing where the normals are. And normally, normally with normals, they should be shooting outside of the object. But you can see here they are the opposite direction. That's okay because it's not going to do so much with moving our or changing the shaping, but just keep that in mind because we're going to do something very shortly that's going to help resolve this, okay? So let's scale this, and let's actually change this here. the transform pivot point to individual origins. So up here you should have normal and then individual origins. Because what we want to do is we want to scale these along their normals so that we can actually scale each individual square by themselves, so individually, and make these more into square shapes instead of these rectangular shapes. So S, and then we're going to hit Y, and you can see that when we do that and we start to move the scaling, it's starting to change the overall shaping like that instead. So from this point here, what we actually want to do is we're going to extrude the outside set here in to start to create that inner section of the channel. So we're going to hit A here though, and I'll show you what this looks like when we turn back on wireframe. We're going to go up to mesh, go down to normals, recalculate outside. And there you can see the normals have now all been recalculated into their correct positions. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're just going to select all of this stuff here. So I'm going to speed this up, but I'm holding shift and I'm just holding shift and left click selecting. There are lots of ways to do this, but this is what I'm going to do because it's the easiest. And I'm going to speed up this footage so that you don't have to watch me do this. Okay, so there we go. I just selected all of those. And now what we want to do is we want to extrude this in. Now, to make sure that this stays really nice and even and all of that, what we're going to do is we're going to change this up here back to global, this right here back to 3D cursor. And when we extrude this, we want to kind of make it so that it cuts across sort of the bottom edge here to hold it into place. Okay, so I'm going to hit E for extrude. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click to set that back to where it was. So we did extrude it. It's just layered right on top of the last stuff that we had. And what we want to do is we want to scale this down, but we don't want to scale it on the Y. Okay. So when I scale this now, you can see that it's scaling in all directions, which is not quite what we want it to do. We want to keep it nice and flat along the Y. So we're going to hit S, Shift Y, and then we're going to end up scaling that down, okay? But I want to look at it from this direction here so I can see it cut through the section that I want here. So we're going to hit S, Shift Y, and pull it down to about there. And you can hold Shift to help you finesse that to put it right in the spot that you want it. So right about, let's do there. Okay. So this is where we're at right now. So we have a channel and we have one diamond that's sort of right there. And what we need to do is we now need to create the channel that goes around the outside here so that it doesn't look like it's bisecting or cutting through our diamond here. So let's go back into edit mode. And what we want to do is we want to look at this from the front, go back into our wireframe mode, and we want a loop cut to go right through the center here. And then we're going to control where that loop cut is actually going to be to make the channel a little bit more aligned with our current diamond that's in there. So let's go back to solid mode, control R and hover into this area here. That's going to show us where that's going to go. And then we can kind of move it around. Okay. But we're going to right click that and we're going to go to the front and we're going to go to wireframe. And we're just going to take a look at this as it is right here. And what we want to do is take this line, hit G twice, and you can move this to be right about there. And I'm holding shift so that I can have more control over this. I'm going to set it right there with left click. So obviously this is not the way that we want to create the actual channel is with this line here. What we want to do is we want to create a little inset. We want to push or extrude out a section that allows the channel to actually be set into the metal of the ring. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Control B here to bevel, and you can see there I'm creating a new set of lines. And if I roll up and down on my middle mouse wheel, you can see that there's basically, it takes that line that we had there, that loop cut, and it's just splitting it in two directions. And if you roll up, you're adding geometry, but we don't want that. We just want it to be like this. So make sure you roll down so that there is no line or loop cut in the center. And we just want to set it right about there. And you can adjust this later. So once you set it's not a big deal. So left click to set that. Then what we want to do here is we want to extrude this, but when we do this, we want to extrude extrude and then only scale on the Y. Okay, so we're going to hit E to extrude, and we're not going to set this because it's not what we want. Right click to undo that, and then we're going to hit S, then Y, hold Shift, and you're going to pull it into you're going to pull it out from that center there. Because remember, we're using the center point up here for the pivot point. And if we go down here and we take a look, we can see that now we have a channel. And if we go to wireframe, we can take a look to see if it's enough. And it looks like it's just barely not enough. So I'm going to scale that on Y, pull it out a little bit more. And now we have that channel set in the right direction. Now there's one issue that you can see here. We have this face right here. I'm going to hit 3 to go to face select, or you can select it up here. If you grab this and you move this around, whoops, I hit hide. If I grab this and I move it around, it hasn't moved at all. And that's because we only scaled this on the Y. And this doesn't go on the Y in the down direction that we want. So you can think about how we can actually move this along its actual origin of just this face. And, pause it, think about it, and then come back. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to select that one there, go to the other side, and select the same one. And what we want to do is we want to change this up here to normal, because we want to move it along the normal. And we want to change this here to individual origins. And what that will allow us to do is if we hit G, and then we hit Z, you can actually see that now it's going on the Z-axis away in the direction that that normal is. And if we go and look at where the actual diamond is on this side, we can see that it's really not going to do much on this side here, but we can just grab that and pull it down. And there we have the channel being fully created all the way along here. And that will help us out later when we add a subsurf modifier. So let's save it from this point. And let's just take a look at what we've done. So what we've done so far is we've created the overall outside design of this thing, and we have the makings of where we can actually create the holes right in here. So from this point, what we're going to do is we're just going to select all of these all along here like this, just like that. And then we're going to select all of these here because these will end up connecting to the ones in the bottom. And I'm going to hit / right now, which is going to isolate this to get that diamond out of there. And then hit / again to bring it back if we want to see it. So now what we can do here is we can hit I to inset once more. And that's going to create a nice little edge loop to control these circle shapes as we finish up the whole creation of this here. So from here, what we can do is we can actually hit Control E, which will allow us to bridge the edge loops of these two areas. And if we click that, you're going to see something weird happen. And that's because it's bridging them as if they were all one loop. But, and I'm going to turn this off down here so you can see, if we open up this little selection here, see where it says open loop? Change that to loop pairs. And if you change it to loop pairs, you'll see that now you have created a nice little hole throughout the entire thing. So there we have our holes created throughout the entire ring, and it was pretty easy to do that. Believe me, it was a really, really difficult thing for me to try and figure out an easy way to show this to you, so hopefully that helps you out in how you can actually do that. Now you can see here there's a little bit of an inconsistency. We have a more perfect square sort of thing right here, and then these are a little bit oblong. Well, that's okay. All we have to do here is go to wireframe, hold Control, and I'm just going to deselect those sections and make sure that this is set to normal and these to individual origins, and hit SY, and we can make those a little bit more accurate. Actually, it looks like that's not going to work specifically for the faces there. So let's actually take the loops here and see if it will work for them. So I'm just going to go around and select the loops for each of these. And you could hit Control Z and go back to the faces. Let's actually do that. Instead of doing it from here, let's hit Control Z. Let's go back to this before we bridge the edge loops. And let's go ahead and deselect these sections here. And let's just do a little bit better job. Hit Control plus to select more of these. And let's see if we can actually use the normal and individual origins here to change this to be a little bit more accurate. So S and then Y. And there we go. We can make this a little bit more of an actual square. So let's do more like that there. Okay, great. Maybe a little bit more. There, just like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab these squares again. Whoops. Holding Shift, selecting all of these faces. And then the bottom side here. And we'll go ahead and bridge those edge loops again with Control E, bridge edge loops. Looks like I have something not. Let's see. I forgot to select this one here. So let's go to /, grab this one as well, and Control E, bridge edge loops, and there we go. Now we have it all perfectly put together. So there's our holes. Now, what we can do here is we can actually start to create a more smoothed out looking ring to see what this is more or less going to really look like when we add a subsurface. So let's go to object mode by hitting tab / to go back to the object mode, select our ring here, hit Control 2, and there we have our smoothed out version. I'm going to keep it on the flat shading right now. I'm not going to change it to the smooth just so you can see how the geometry is playing here. We're going to hit tab and we're going to start to refine our edges on this object here. So let's hold Alt and Shift and left click these loops. And you can see here that these no longer really create a perfect edge loop. And that's okay. We can deal with this as it is. So I'm just going to hold Shift and Alt and left click to select all of these edges here. I'm going to hit N. We're going to go to Item. And then we're going to take the, oh, let me turn this back on. Looks like I forgot to turn this back on down here. I'm going to turn on mean crease, and that's going to set a crease on the edges of our object. So you can see that there. We're also going to do the same thing for the inside here. I'm going to hit Alt and left click that, and we're going to set a crease there as well. And I'm actually going to hit / here to isolate this. I'm going to turn this on right here that says on cage. Click that. And you can see that we have some edges in here that we can now select. You can turn off subsurf if this is hard. And I'm actually going to turn off the normals here so it's a little easier to see. I'm actually going to turn off the subdivision surface as well just so that it's easier to see where these are. And we want to create more harsh edges along all these as well, just because that's the kind of design I like. I like to see in metal, I like the really nice change between the forms, and adding a bevel in there eventually is going to look really, really nice. So let's grab those. We're going to change this mean crease up. And at this point, if you wanted to add a bevel here, because we will be adding a bevel modifier, you may, or you can add that again later. It's really up to you and if you want to do that right now or not. And for this bottom set here, you can see that it's not really a full edge loop. If you hold Alt and left click, it's not all a edge loop down there, but that's okay. You can hold Control if you select one of these edges right here, and we jump to the other side. If you hold, if you hold Control, so you can select that whole line there, Shift, select that one again, go back to the other side, and then Shift, Control, you can select that other line there, and then Shift, left click again, and change that to a 1 for the crease. Let's turn back on our subsurf, and you can see that now we have a little bit more of what we would expect to see, some nice sharp lines, and then we have some of these other edges here that are, or some of these other areas that are more smoothed out like this here. Now let's go ahead and we're going to turn on Shade Smooth, so you can right click your object, Shade Smooth, and now we have a smoothed out look of this whole thing here. Next thing that we want to do is go over here, click on Normals, Auto Smooth, and that is going to auto smooth all of this stuff out to look really, really, really nice. So some of you may be looking at this and going, oh, there's a weird shading thing here. Yes, there is. And I'm going to show you how you can sort of help negate some of this weird shading. So let's first make this a little bit more obvious. Select your object here, go up here to these settings, go to Matte Cap, and turn on this metallic one here. And we're going to take a look a little bit at this geometry. So let's hit tab and take a look. So part of the problem here is that we have this sort of like loop situation, or these edges here, that we kind of don't really need. And it's creating this sort of weird creasing look here. So if you hold shift, and I'm holding shift and alt, let me turn back on my screencast keys here. If you hold shift and you select all of these edges here, we're going to get rid of these. So Control X to get rid of those edges, and now it's a little bit easier to look at. Now from this far away, you're really not going to see a whole lot going on, and there are some other things you can do to kind of resolve this, but I think that this is going to work just fine for now, and really, in the grand scheme of things, you're not going to see a whole lot of those little issues when you are rendering from this far away. Okay? Now, one thing that we also want to do here is we want to tighten up some of these circles. So let's grab all of these. I'm just going to hold shift and alt. And we're just going to select all of the outside rings here. Fun navigating sometimes when you're working on this. I'm going to select all of these, hit N to open this up, go to item, crease that up. You can see that it makes it nice and tight there. And we can do the same thing with the bottoms here. We can just select all of these like so, and then crease those up. So there we go. Nice and tight circles there. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to add a bevel to the edges of all of our stuff. So let's go back into here, and basically what you want to do is hold shift and alt and grab all the edges that you want to add a bevel. So I'm just going to grab all these sections here, and we want to go up here where it says edges data, so you can hit N to make sure that's open, go to item, turn that to a 1 there. I want a bevel to go along this part of the channel right here, so I'm going to turn that up there. And I think that's pretty good. We can do the ones, you can go around and do all these down here, but I'm not going to do those ones, I don't think. So from here, we'll go here, add a bevel, and we put that above the subdivision surface modifier there. And we're going to change where it says limit method angle, change that to weight. And now we can control by holding shift and left click dragging this amount right here. We can change the size of the bevel there, and you can change the number of segments. So if you want it to be more rounded, you could do that. But I think it looks really nice when you have this very cool metallic look going on here. And if you take the subdivision surface modifier here and you put that up to a 3, maybe even a 4, you can get a better idea about what the final render will sort of look like. Okay, so now what we want to do is I'm going to hit / to go back to our non-isolated mode. So that's where we were before. And let's just take a look and see how this is shaping up with our diamond here. So let's take a look and see if there's any major issues that we are running into. So what we need to be careful of is we don't want the diamond to be getting bisected or cut. Let's actually click this, hit period to zoom in on it, and let's look in here. So you can see there, it is cutting through. You can see that right there. So we can make some alterations here to our mesh to make that a little bit more proper. So let's grab this. Let's actually turn off the subdivision and the bevel for the moment. So what we want to do is we want to grab this one here. And there is another line right in here. So let's hold shift and alt to grab both of those. And let's actually just grab this top one first. Let's just grab this one here, hit G twice, and that will move it along this axis here. And if we take a look and we turn back on the subdivision, we can see where it's cutting through. And if we hit G twice, we can move it up just like that. And then let's sneak back in here, grab this one underneath, and take a look here, hit G twice, and move that up. Let's get a better angle on this guy. So hit G twice, move that up a bit. Actually, instead of that, let's just scale this. So let's change this up here to the 3D cursor so that this is the pivot point right here. And we're just going to scale this sucker up a little bit just until it stops hitting that diamond. So let's scale that up to right about, let's do something like that there. These are all adjustments that you can make as you're sort of building this out. So you can see here, it's cutting through the diamond a little bit. We can actually grab this here. So Shift and Alt and left click to select those. And we can scale that even down a little bit. Let's actually scale Shift Y so that it doesn't scale on the Y. Change this from normal to global. Forgot to do that. Scale, Shift Y, pull that down. And that looks pretty good. Let's turn back on Bevel to make sure everything is taken care of here. And looks good. Looks good. Now what you can do to make this a little bit more accurate is you could grab this top one and pull it down a bit more to be more like kind of hugging the diamond a little bit more. But remember, you really don't want to spend too much time working on stuff that no one's ever going to see, okay? The most important thing is make sure that nothing's cutting through the diamond, okay? So that also means down in here, and you can see this is off by a little bit, and we're going to resolve that in a moment. But you don't want your diamond being cut, okay? You don't want your diamond having anything interfering with it, so just keep that in mind. So let's go to wireframe here, and let's actually finesse where the diamonds are going to be placed along this set, this diamond set, okay? Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to duplicate this diamond across our object here. Now there is going to be a little bit of an issue when we do this technique. We're going to have to make a couple adjustments, which really isn't a big deal. So just keep that in mind when we do it. And you know, there isn't one specific way to do a project like this. There are other methods that you could do this to make it a little bit maybe easier or something, but let's just do it this way because it is, in my opinion, one of the easiest ways, and it really doesn't matter too much if it's not 100% accurate, okay? So make sure that you have your diamond selected here, and then we're going to go into edit mode, and it should look something like this. Hit A to select everything here, and then we're going to hit 1 to look at it from the front view. And what we want to do is go down here where it says spin, and yours should probably start looking like this. So you're going to go down to spin duplicates and make sure that up here you've changed this to a Y, and then you're going to left click and drag to pull this across. And it's basically going to use that center point that we're looking at here as the method at which it's creating the spin. So you can see that it's duplicated these, and down here on the bottom left you'll see that the keyboard's no longer there. Click this to open it up, and you can see that we can actually change the steps here. So we want 7 on each side. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the steps here, or sorry, 7. The steps here says 6, but really, since the original one here is there, that would be the 7th one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 there. And what we want to do is just get this roughly in the ballpark to get the bottom there set in the center. So something like that there. And you can see that these are a little bit off, but that's okay because we can shift these and alter them as we need to. And then what we can do here is go to the box select here, grab all of these, make sure that you have this set to the transform of the 3D cursor and that your 3D cursor is in the center of your scene. And then you can easily just hit R and move these roughly into the correct spot. Left click and drag to grab these and rotate them and just make the small adjustments that you need to do. So, like I said, there are more than one way to do this type of thing. You can create duplicates based off of vertex locations and, use geometry nodes to do this. But really, it's not necessary to get super detailed in a lot of some of this stuff. All you have to do is just set them roughly in the right spot and don't think too much about this type of stuff. So the next thing here is that it looks like our holes are actually cutting through our diamonds, so we need to make some adjustments. And all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to speed up the footage. I'm going to be I'm going to hit / here to isolate. I'm going to be grabbing all of our circles here, and then using the techniques that we already learned in this tutorial, we're going to be scaling these up so that the holes are a little bit larger. And I'm actually going to make this a little bit easier to select some things. I'm just going to grab some of this information here with the box select and the vertex select. I'm just going to hide those since we're not really going to be dealing with a lot of this stuff here. And so H there to hide, and I'm just hiding a lot of this stuff that we're just not going. And there we go there. So from here, we can basically just grab these and we'll add a mirror modifier right here. Add mirror. You can see it's going around the bottom there. And what we can do is we can actually take this mirror object and select the ring. And now it's using the ring to project to the other side, just like that. Let's hit Control S to save, and basically from this point here, we can turn back on the bevel, and we are ready to do our shading. So that's pretty much going to be it for this. You could go in here, and if you wanted to, hit Control R, add some loop cuts, Control B to bevel, woo, bevel there, and you can hit E and then extrude and make some designs on the side or something like that if you want. But for the purposes of this tutorial, this is going to be pretty much where we stop before we do the next tutorial, which is going to be on shading and materials for the diamonds and rendering this out to look really, really nice. So from here, you can take this and you can make your adjustments to make this more of a quote masculine ring. You can grab these two edges here, make sure that you get used to changing this stuff up here, change it to 3D cursor, scale it on the Y, make it a little bit thicker, and you can have more of a masculine ring or something like that. Feel free to do this at your own leisure on how you want to create this. And if you don't really like the size of the rings here, you can always go back in there, choose these, choose individual origins for this, and scale these suckers up and make adjustments as much as you'd like. Just make sure that you check those things that we talked about before, where it's cutting through the channel and stuff like that. You can make your adjustments that way. And after you make your adjustments and all that, make sure that you go on to the next tutorial where I will show you how to put on materials and render this out for final. Really quick, one thing I noticed while I was doing some adjustments, there seemed to be some doubled up stuff with our diamonds here. So go ahead and click those, hit tab to go into uh, the edit mode, and make sure you have everything selected. And we need to recalculate our normals. So go to mesh, normals, recalculate outside, and then go to the vertex select here, hit M, merge by distance, and you should see some remove vertices down there. So that should help resolve any issues that you saw. So thanks very much. Make sure that you're subscribed and that you like the channel if you like what I'm making here. And jump on the Discord if you find any trouble creating this thing and if you need some help. And I will see you guys next time on DJ Tutorials.